Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another week of Grace Daily. I know that we missed last week, so we got a couple of things to kind of announce, and I do just want to let you know, if you can't tell already by the lighting, and I'm not in a collared shirt or anything. This will be over December at least. The format might be a little bit different, probably a little less completely studied out, because the texts that we'll be looking at, or really the messages that we'll be having over these next few weeks, aren't based out of necessarily one text. And so to dive into one text and pull out the riches from it is not really something that we can fit into this format over the next few weeks. But we do want to continue to have this available to you, and I've got some ideas that we'll be working through as well during the Christmas season and with the messages that are going on. So just a quick recap. Remember, we have started a Christmas series called Behold the Savior, and we are simply looking at these promises from the Old Testament and watching how Jesus Christ is the fulfillment of them. And so this week we're going to look at we're not looking at 6 passages, but we're looking at kind of some obscure passages. And we're going to be talking about the branch. So dig in as we get ready to look through Jesus Christ, the branch. Right, so as I said, in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament, there are 6 different passages, or 6 times, I guess, that this branch is mentioned. And so I wanted to give some context behind each of these passages, because and I'm going to let you know what they are, so you are more than welcome to go and research them yourselves. But the passages, and we'll probably touch on most of them on Sunday, but it doesn't mean that we're going to have time to do in-depth looks at all of them. So I want you to get the context. The passages in mention are Isaiah 4, verse 2. That's the very first mention of the branch. But I'm a little fuzzy on the actual where that one is coming from, because it's not capitalized and it's an odd mention of it. But nevertheless, then the main one is Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 through 11, Jeremiah 23, 1 through 8, Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 15, and then we have Zechariah chapter 3, verse 8, and Zechariah chapter 6, verse 12, and all of the surrounding context there. So over the next few days, we're going to look at some of these passages and just kind of get the context of what's going on, so that on Sunday, even if we briefly go back over it, we're not wondering, like, okay, Zechariah, what's going on here, and why would a branch be important? So we're going to rewind. We're going to go back to Isaiah, since that's the main passage we'll be in. Yet we're still going to bounce around quite a bit. But if you look at Isaiah 11, in order to get the full context of what's going on, really you need to go back kind of to the beginning of Isaiah, but that's a lot. And so if you head back to chapter 7, and we're going to do a lot of summarizing here. If you go back to chapter 7, this is where you begin with the famous prophecy of a virgin conceiving a son. Here, in the context of Isaiah, he is talking to Ahaz, this wicked king, and Ahaz says, well, you don't have to give me a sign, and Isaiah says, you don't have to pretend to be spiritual for me. I know who you are, and God knows who you are. Here's your sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive, and shall bring forth a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. And so this is found in Isaiah chapter 7, beginning in verse 14. And what's happening here is there's destruction that's going to be coming into Israel and Judah because of sin, and yet the promise and the sign that it will happen, but also that God will continue to be with his people. He's not going to forsake and abandon them forever. So Isaiah is telling them about all of this destruction that will be coming. And so the first fulfillment, many people believe the first fulfillment of this virgin conceiving, it seems that Isaiah took a wife, and obviously she was not a virgin as she conceived, because Isaiah, they did it the natural way. But it was a type of fulfillment. And so they have this child. Forgive me, this is a very difficult name. They have this child named Maher Shalal Hashbaz. And this child is kind of the sign, it's the symbol, but he's a precursor to the Messiah. And we don't know much about this young boy, except that he was kind of this pre-sign of the Messiah. And then we know that Isaiah chapter 7 is fulfilled ultimately with Mary and Jesus Christ. But what I want you to understand is the first promise of this Messiah is within the context of a coming doom, basically. We have chapter 8, and it's kind of talking about what this is going to look like. Then we get over to chapter 9, right? Chapter 9 is some more important messianic prophecies. So here we have in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, where we have, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." And of the increase of his government, maybe we'll look at that a little bit, but of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth and forever, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. So again, another sign. Judgment will come, but there's going to be this ultimate Savior. Then, chapter 9, verse 8, pretty much through chapter 10, it's really just talking about this judgment to come. Assyria is coming. Israel, the northern kingdom, will be judged hard. They're going to look at Jerusalem, but they're not going to get Jerusalem, because God will continue to protect it. And God begins at the end of chapter 10 to give this analogy of the forests of Lebanon being wiped out. And so you have this idea already happening of trees, and this forest is wiped out of the judgment of God, and Assyria is coming as a tool of God to judge his rebellious people. And so you're kind of in this absolute idea of desolation, doom, sorrow, difficulty. It's not a very pretty picture. And then in chapter 11, "And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord." And we'll continue to go through that. What I want you to see is that desolation is the theme. From Isaiah 7, really before that, Isaiah, this whole theme is judgment, and yet God is still there. Judgment, and yet God will not forsake. Judgment, and yet God will one day have mercy again. And it's in the middle of this desolation that we see a stump, a dead tree, and a branch begins to shoot out of it. And that branch, as we will see on Sunday, is Jesus Christ. And so I would encourage you, if you would like to dig deeper into this, the best thing to do is to read Isaiah chapter 1 all the way through chapter 11. But I understand Isaiah can be a lot, so just check out the surrounding context and the verses and find out what's going on. All right, I know again it's a different format, but thanks for hanging in there with us. We will continue to be looking at other passages about the branch through this week. So until then, grace and peace, my friends.